In 1974, the country responsible for inventing the paint roller, peanut butter, wonderbra, imax, basketball, and insulin conjured yet another essential contribution to humanity. That's right, in 1974, Canada invented the slasher movie with the release of Black Christmas. Yes, I see you, Psycho and Peeping Tom, skulking in the corner, but if the American Thomas Edison can claim to have invented the light bulb, despite the fact that Canadians Henry Woodward and Matthew Evans patented the same thing 4 years prior to his so-called invention, then I can pretend Black Christmas invented the slasher wholesale instead of just being the first film to codify it. Black Christmas took the foundation laid by Psycho and Peeping Tom, combined it with giallo, and overlaid a gritty, though tasteful, approach, without ever backing down from shocking subject matter and terrifying sequences. It's also a Christmas classic, using the warmth and vitality of the holiday season as a counterpoint to the chilling sense of creeping dread. Unfortunately, we never got a true sequel to this seminal film. We did get 2 remakes, but I don't want to talk about them. So what would a Black Christmas 2 look like if it did end up getting made? Well, as a screenwriter and a horror fan, if I were tasked with coming up with the perfect sequel to Black Christmas, I'd have some specific rules I would want to follow. Rule 1. Move the story forward. So I don't personally love when movies pick up right where the last one left off because it makes it seem more like the 2 movies are supposed to be watched together. If you're going to do a sequel, at least make it something people can watch and enjoy on its own while still paying tribute to the original. So maybe 5 or more years have passed since the events of Black Christmas. Billy has been locked up. He was arrested for an unrelated crime, and, once anyone talked to him, he was institutionalized, right? The main point being the events of Black Christmas were never linked to him. So he's not being locked up for those crimes. In my mind, he's been locked up for something a bit more petty and institutionalized simply because, well, have you seen the movie? In terms of where it's set, it can't be in the same town as the original, but you do want the same vibe. So instead of that sorority college town feeling, maybe settle for small town suburbia, something he could conceivably walk to. Number 2. Respect the ambiguity of the original's ending. If you're watching this, you've seen Black Christmas, right? So I'm not spoiling this. At least I hope I'm not. You should go watch Black Christmas. But the ending never really reveals what happens. It sets some interesting things up and never really pays them off, which in this case really works for the film because it keeps the events alive in your imagination instead of watching the credits and thinking, oh man, what a great story. You're watching the credits and thinking, oh my gosh, what is going to happen next to these characters? It lives on in your imagination without feeling like sequel bait. So I don't retrospectively want that to read like it was sequel bait. So in our hypothetical sequel, we won't necessarily resolve what happened in the sorority house. This is its own story, picking up after Billy breaks out of the institution. And of course, the ending of the sequel should be equally ambiguous, right? You don't want to put a bow on it. Number 3. Holidays. Now, we can't do Christmas again, so it might be nice to go with something new, like July 4th, St. Patrick's Day, maybe something a bit more niche, Arbor Day. Number 4, pay homage to the original without ripping it off. So the first movie begins with this absolutely iconic first-person point of view camera as Billy creeps around the outside of the sorority, spying on these unsuspecting sorority girls as they're getting ready for Christmas. It's a great way to absolutely throw the audience off. It's just one of those things that immediately makes me think Black Christmas. So, of course, in their sequel, we've got to begin in the same way. In the original movie, Billy's an unpredictable enigma. The less we know about him, the scarier he is. So we've absolutely got to respect that. And of course, as mentioned in Rule 2, final girl survives and defeats Billy, or does she? Rule number 5, and this is a golden rule. It's our final rule, but it's a golden rule for all sequels. You've got to up the ante. That means more deaths. Nothing ridiculous, just a slight increase. Instead of the original 7, we'll take it to 11 or 12 or 13, but let's not get too crazy with it. What's important here is we capture the same thematic atmosphere the original built. But of course, that atmosphere has to pay off. You need a discharge of that electricity. More creativity in the deaths. The original gave us plastic bags, hooks, glass unicorns, among other things. So in the sequel, Billy's time in captivity has given him a lot of rage and creativity. He's not just out for blood, he wants to have a good time too. In the sequel, Billy gets downright theatrical. And we're gonna have to talk about Billy's identity. In the original, the most we saw of Billy was his eye, and the only real clues we got as to the state of his psyche and potentially his backstory were in his unhinged babblings. It's anyone's guess how factual those were, right? In the sequel, we need to do the same thing. Anything we find out about Billy, it should be questionable as to how valid that is. So it's got to come from an external source this time around. You know, in the first film, we jump between the police desperately trying to solve the case and the terrorized sorority girls. So for the info dump, perhaps this time we can balance our time between some terrorized teenagers and maybe authorities from the institution Billy escapes from, since they don't know really anything about him, and he was institutionalized after being arrested for a crime unrelated to the events of Black Christmas. The institution angles a perfect opportunity to give more peeks into Billy's messed up psyche from another perspective, the perspective of the staff who was caring for him. We can't repeat the same gimmick as Black Christmas with the telephone calls and the calls coming from inside the house. It's a sequel. We gotta up the ante. He has broken free from the house. The call is coming from outside the house. And there's no call, right? This is ye old pre-cell phone times. So the phone angle is with the first movie, and the free roaming angle is with the second movie. It's got its own thing while paying homage. In regards to seeing Billy, right? In the original, the most we saw of Billy was just his eyeball looking through that crack in the door. So in the sequel, we should pay tribute to this while upping the ante by having Billy's eye gouged out by one of his victims while also showing a quick flash of his face. Just enough so the audience is interested and not really sure what they just saw, but not enough to where we give up the game, you know? The whole free-range Billy concept is going to be a lot more easy to execute if he's wearing some sort of holiday costume or mask. The Easter Bunny? Too silly. A leprechaun? Too wacky. A tree? Well, you know, talked about Arbor Day. It's better than nothing. It's got to be something inconspicuous while also being instantly iconic and chilling. Additionally, there should be a massive plot twist. Like this one, for example. This fictional sequel to Black Christmas we've been discussing, it isn't fictional. It's a very real movie, and it came out in 1978, 4 years after the first, and it was a massive hit. You've probably seen it. Bob Clark, director of Black Christmas, explained the whole thing in a 2005 interview with Robert Galuzzo. Sorry, Robert, if I pronounced your name wrong. He said, "I never intended to do a sequel. About 3 years later, I started a film with John Carpenter. It was his first film for Warner Brothers, and he asked me if I was ever going to do a sequel. I said no. I was through with horror. I didn't come into the business to just do horror." He said, "Well, what would you do if you did do a sequel?" I said it would be the next year, and the guy would have actually been caught, escaped from a mental institution, go back to the house, and they would start all over again. And I would call it Halloween. That's right. The sequel to Black Christmas is, unofficially, Halloween. Let's look back at that list, shall we? The movie begins with an iconic first-person point of view. College town becomes the suburbs. Halloween has 4 more deaths than Black Christmas. Creative kills are expanded upon, creatively. We get a chillingly brief yet humanizing glimpse at the villain. Michael is able to take Billy's ambiguous nature mobile, leveraging the holiday Halloween by wearing a costume. And of course, the final girl survives, but the villain's fate is left to the imagination. So did John Carpenter really run with Bob's idea when making Halloween? Once again, according to Clark, no, that's not really true. The truth is, John didn't copy Black Christmas. He wrote a script, directed the script, did the casting. Halloween is his movie, and besides, the script came to him already titled that way. He liked Black Christmas and may have been influenced by it, but in no way did John Carpenter copy the idea. 15 other people at that time had a thought to do a movie called Halloween, but the script came to John with that title on it. So no, it doesn't look like there was anything intentional about Halloween's relationship to Black Christmas, but it does line up pretty well tonally. With a few tweaks here and there, Halloween could have easily been a killer follow-up to one of the greats. Instead, it had to settle for being, well, one of the greats.